And welcome to Practicing the Pillars. I'm Chaplain Randy Croft with the 509th Bomb Wing. Really glad to have with us the commander for the 509th Bomb Wing, Colonel Jeffrey Schreiner. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Hey, no problem at all. It's my pleasure to get over here today.
Tell us a little bit about that music. It's a blast from the past, a classic song.
Well, I'm definitely, I grew up childhood through the 70s and then watched the whole movement of music through the 80s and the early 90s. Nirvana's always been one of my favorite bands. Yeah, I think it's a timely song because, what I'm learning about leadership over the last couple of weeks is that you got to make really hard decisions, and a lot of times those decisions do not make people happy. So in a way, it's kind of a shout out to everybody. All apologies for the inconveniences that this is all put on our lives. At the end of the day, we all make hard decisions, and I know down to individual families, we're all making hard decisions at home too. So it's really kind of an overall comment about the world that we live in right now.
Well, it was really neat to see this weekend, though. One of the decisions was to go out into the neighborhoods and to thank families. Many of them are, restricting their movement, and the kids are at home. They're taking school at home, and some of the playgrounds are temporarily shut right now. But just being able to go out and do the parade was really good response. A lot of the kids and families, and seemed to go really well.
Yeah, it was a great turnout this weekend. Chief McCool and I and the leadership team were talking, and as we were setting this up, and great work by the team. But at the end of the day, you kind of wonder how something like this is going to turn out. We kind of had the discussion about, is it too soon? Are people really ready for this? With a resounding noise, I think the entirety of the base community really rose to the occasion on this. It's an opportunity. It's always great to see. The kids are always excited about this kind of thing. You saw a lot of smiles there, but seeing a lot of smiles just of families too, to give them an opportunity to do something that morning. Definite apologies to the night shift workers who probably got woken up, but we had to pick a time and go with it, and I think it worked out really good. But amazing opportunity. The base is not surprising me, but it's confirming what I already knew, is that we have a resilient population that understands what we're doing here, the importance of why we're carrying on a mission, and the balance that we have to strike to make that happen.
Right, and that resilience, carries over not just this assignment, but from previous assignments, upbringing, etc. And we wanted to hear today, what in your personal experience has really been an obstacle or a challenge or something that you and your family have overcome over the years.
Well, I think it's easy to try to come up with an example from military life, but today I wanted to talk about something a little more personal, which is more related to family and the specific situation that we have with our family. I think I didn't come from a military family. My grandfathers both served in World War II, but they by no means career military folks. I had a great aunt that was in the Navy, in the Nurse Corps as an 06, but as far as people that were close to me, I didn't really have that. So when I kind of struck out on this adventure and going after finishing up at the Air Force Academy, my wife, Crystal, we were high school sweethearts, so we kind of dove into this together. I always tell the story, our first experience with the military really together was, we had been married for about 30 days, and then we're driving down to Del Rio, Texas, to go to Laughlin Air Force Base. Being from the Midwest where everything's green, and she had gone to school in Missouri as well. I just remember where you're in trail and car, two different cars, and the first thing I see of Laughlin Air Force Base is a tumbleweed, literally rolled right across the highway, and a broken sign for the base where one bolts off and it's swinging in the wind for Laughlin Air Force Base. And I'm just like, what have I done? Bringing my new bride here and starting over a life in the military. I would say everything's been uphill uphill in a positive way. It's all been good experiences since then, with a few bumps and hiccups along the way. But there's challenges that go with that military life. Today, I want to talk a little bit about my family situation, which I think is a good topic when we talk about resiliency and what we deal with. So for many folks probably don't know my family situation. We've got 3 children. I've got a 20-year-old, almost 20-year-old here in about a month, 20-year-old son with autism. We're going to talk a little bit about Alex today and the amazing person that he is, 16-year-old son Wyatt, and then a 14-year-old daughter, Riley Ann. our adventure with Alex actually started here. He was born about a month. We were down in Del Rio, so he was born about a month before we PCS'd here. And we knew from a very early age that Alex was not your typical kid. We didn't really figure that out until we had another kid because we realized that it wasn't normal for a small baby to just kind of lay on a blanket and not need any stimulation for like 2 hours at a time. And
did you first think like, well, he's really easy?
we're like, he is the best kid in the world.
Is this normal?
Yeah, it didn't, to us, as new parents, we kind of started getting clues early on that maybe something wasn't quite right. But all in all, he was a really easy baby, and it made things pretty good, at least for those first 6 or 7 months. Alex was diagnosed at a fairly early age, about 3.5 years old. We got a diagnosis first through the school as he was starting to be looked at for preschool, and then later on we got an official diagnosis when he was about 4.5 from MU down the road, because at that point we had moved up here for our first assignment at Whiteman. And he is classic autism, spectrum. So, who is Alex now? When we talk about a 20-year-old man, almost 20-year-old man that lives in our house, he still goes to school. He can communicate. He has been able to function somewhat in school, but has really profound difficulties being able to relate to people socially, to really an almost incapacitating level at times. So he gets very, I tell people he kind of lives in his own world. And if things aren't exactly the way he thinks they're supposed to be in his own world, it creates real problems for him on the outside world. Case in point, with a lot of this downtime that we're having right now, that's really tough for him. He thrives in a structured environment, but when he has additional free time, it can be very challenging for him. We had a major meltdown the other night, I think because he was watching, he still watches videos from when he was a kid, but he gets them very much stuck in his head. And I think it was something from Sesame Street, and he could not get out of his head, and he was just screaming in the room at his top of his lungs, trying to get it out of his head.
Well,
when you go
Sesame Street has those songs that will never.
That's
always
I think
in
for
there
anybody.
Yeah.
But we go in. But just to give you a little kind of picture of his world, when we go in and try to get him out of that, he will get angry. He will get upset. He will then apologize, but then when you ask him, what are you apologizing for? He has no idea, no concept of why he was even angry in the first place. It's just, he's in his own world. So that we see a lot of that, with Alex over the years. I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about how we've coped with that and dealt with that.
Right. You said was he 4?
Yeah, he was.
When you first discovered he was assessed at 4?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We knew by 2 to 2.5 years old that there was something not quite the same as other kids. Just talking with other parents at that point, and just, he was just a different kind of toddler. He wasn't typical in his behaviors in any way, shape, or form. And then we got the formal diagnosis. I think for every family that can be a real tough challenge. I've had a lot of friends over the years that have dealt with similar diagnoses in their families. I've watched some of them really rise to the occasion. I've seen some of them not in really negative ways that impacted their life and sometimes their marriages. So it can be a really life-changing moment, I think, when you deal with a diagnosis like that with a child.
Sure.
How we approached it from fairly early on is I'm kind of the researcher. So at that point in time, so if you go back, that's 2003 to 4. Autism was out there. I mean, autism's been around forever, but the massive explosion of information that is out, that what we live with now here in 2020 was not there in 2004. So it was still a very kind of like, how do you deal with this? There were enough kids that were getting diagnosed that parents like us were seeking answers, but those answers weren't readily available. So I kind of became the one who I would research all the good ideas, whether it was a medical intervention, whether it was supplements, diet, you name it. So I would come up with all these ideas and routines, and then my wife was the saint that would go and actually try to implement some of these crazy, bizarre things. if you can name an idea that you've heard about of how to treat an autistic child, we have probably tried it in our household at some point. So gluten, dairy-free, all sorts of weird restricted diets. At one point, when he was about 5 or 6, thankfully, he learned how to take like actual pills, so he could take vitamins and things like that. So as a 6-year-old, it wasn't unusual for Alex to be taking like 15 supplements a day. And B12 shots, everything that has, most of which has been debunked over the years. We tried it because at that point in time, nobody really knew what the science was. And we kind of took the approach I think most parents do in situations like that. It's like, hey, if it's not going to hurt them, let's give it a shot and see if it maybe helps a little bit. I think one of the most profound moments as a parent with a child like Alex, I mean, we love him to death. He's an amazing, amazing young man now. But at some point you hit, after trying all those different things, you kind of hit a wall as a parent and you realize that, hey, there is no silver bullet. There's no magic cure. He's not going to be like, our younger kids as we're watching them grow up with typical interactions, that he's not going to just wake up and be like that someday. And you have to be willing to work through that as an individual and then as a couple and go, okay, what does that mean for the future? And we're still a work in progress for that. I mean, we have a 20-year-old man in our house that likes to, watch Sesame Street videos and gets mentally stuck on all sorts of things. That can be really challenging. And we're still kind of doing that soul searching process as a family of what does life look like for Alex, 2, 3, 4, 5 years post-military. At some point this all ends. I've got 24 years in right now, so I got a lot less in front of me than what I got behind me in my career. So
it sounds sort of like you and your wife, though, are on the same page. You were experimenting with different, things that might help. Sometimes people, when they have if an EFMP challenge, sometimes a member will feel a little bit guilty, like, are we doing the best thing? We're moving, and there's change. And was that part of the conversation early on, or was it just always we're going to solve this together and we're going to get through it together? Or
I don't want to paint like this. It was the perfect cooperative engagement at all points in time on Alex. I mean, it's been a challenge, and I think as any married couple that we didn't. There were points where we didn't see eye to eye on certain things with Alex. And the other thing I like to say is, I'm not here to judge how each individual family deals with that. There are some people that based on what they see and their own feelings and their own relationship, they're going to say, hey, we got to settle down in one place and we're just going to pour all our energy into this. As a couple, we kind of made the decision early on that, we had 2 other kids coming up behind Alex, and we kind of said, hey, we're going to live our life and we're going to give him the best that we can possibly give him. And I feel like we've done that for the most part at every turn. And we kind of decided early on too that with the nature of his issues, new experiences probably were not going to hurt him because what we saw as a child, the longer we were in a location, a lot of times the repetitive nature of that would get stale for him and it would become difficult for him. We see it every summer when we have a break. That can get exacerbated over years if you're in one place for a long, long time. So we've never really been, as a couple, afraid of moving with him. And then all of a sudden we woke up and he was like 18 years old and almost done with high school. And so now we're dealing with the additional challenge of how we make that transition to him as an adult and how he's going to live his life at this point.
So as your career is developing and you're deploying and changing assignments, obviously your job plate will probably have more on it. You'll have more tasks and more chance to be exhausted, maybe overwhelmed. And then that whole question of how do you balance, and so you practice these pillars, and how do you stay balanced with the family? What helped you with the demands of leadership, and how do you juggle it all? Even when whether you're separated or you're home, but you have so much on, even now as a commander, your hours must be incredible, and you still have, a young adult that you care about and love very much, but the challenges don't go away.
I think that's a very good question. I think for me, and a lot of people will see a situation like what we have with Alex, and they'll approach it from two different ways. And we have had these interactions with people that we meet over the years. Some people will approach your situation with almost like a pity, like, oh, I'm sorry you have to deal with that. Some people will be interested and want to understand and learn more about it. And then some people get it because they're dealing with their own situations in life. I am a better leader and a better person because of Alex. He has changed my perspective, I would say, on life, because he lives life in a very different way than the way we live it. The things that we care about and that matter to us, he doesn't worry about. And that causes you to go, okay, you realize that he is going to rely on somebody to be there for him his whole life. So we recognize early on, I think, as a military couple that the military is demanding, and there are going to be times where there was going to be a need for me to pour a lot more energy into the military side, into the career side, than I would have left over for the family side. And I think good communication as a couple, not that we're perfect at everything, but good communication and just expectations as you go into different periods of your career go a long way. I think back to the 6 months I spent in weapons school here. Even though I was coming home every night, and it's, basically most of it's here at Whiteman Air Force Base, we walked into that up front knowing that my almost sole attention was going to be on trying to get through that course over 6 months. And so we went into it with a mental model that, Crystal was going to have to pick up a lot in order to make that work. Other times, and I tried to preach this when I was a squadron commander, and I'm finding it harder to get this out as a wing commander, because now I'm trying to communicate that through squadron commanders. You've got, I tell people this all the time, the Air Force, and this isn't a critique of the Air Force, but the Air Force will take everything from you. They will take all your time. It will take all your effort if you let it have it. And I tell people that's not really what we want to have happen. That's not good for the Air Force. It's not good for you. It's not good for your family. So there's a balance. And what I have told people over the years is that, when there's a choice to make, assuming the mission isn't at a vital level at that moment in time and you're not the linchpin to it, find a way to take care of your family. So if you got to get home early to take, maybe an appointment, or if you got to get home early to get to a football game, go do that. Take that time, because at some point the Air Force is going to ask for that time back when they really need it. So I would like to think, and I hope my wife would echo this sentiment. Maybe she's not here, so we'll assume she will, that I have found that balance over the years. And we have made some choices in our assignments over our career that maybe were at that point in time. I chose to go out to the Air Force Academy to be an air officer commanding out there. I think there were probably people at the time that thought, hey, that's not the best career move for you. You probably need to go do Joint Staff XYZ. That would be a better match and progress you career-wise. But I looked at it like Alex was at a crucial age, elementary school. There were good schools there that we knew we were going to be able to get him into, good treatment programs that we were excited about. And we said, hey, we're not going to worry about career on this, and we're going to go follow our heart, do what's right for our family. I think in the end, it was one of the best assignments I've had. I definitely grew as a leader in ways that I wouldn't have grown, maybe sitting somewhere on a joint staff at that point in time. And at the end of the day, I'm pretty happy about where I'm at right now. So I think if you make choices that are good for your family, and you put your heart and soul into those choices, then at the end of the day, I think the career is most of the time going to take care of itself.
I'm glad to hear you mention that, because sometimes people will feel that it's either career or family. But I always admire when I'll hear someone who extends an assignment, for example. They'll maybe stay an extra year and they'll be told, well, it's not best for your career, but they'll say this is the best for my family. And at the end of the day, when the military's done, I want to have a healthy family, because they are sacrificing for me as much as I'm trying to sacrifice to do the mission. So it's great that you mention that, because we often don't thank our families enough for the sacrifices they make.
Yeah, it's I can't possibly thank my wife enough over the years. I mean, she's been with me through this whole thing. We actually met in junior high, so the fact that she was still willing to marry me after 4 years of the Air Force Academy is a true testament to her, and she's still here by my side. It has been challenging at times, and the military career can be tough. Going through squadron command here, and then deployment for a year out to Al-Udeid to experience all 5 of their summers. It's been an adventure, but she's been a rock for me. Helping me get through this over the years. It's interesting. You kind of hit a point where you start to realize, especially with 24 years in like me, you kind of go, okay, at any day we could just be done with this and we could move on. And we've had a lot of discussions over the last couple of years. Once we got this assignment, we knew we were coming here, which was a dream job, for me. I never thought this would be an opportunity to come back to Whiteman as a wing commander. We've been evolving our thought process about what's next, and realizing that, I think as you grow as a leader, I think strong military families adapt and grow in their mindset as well, where we don't do this now so much about the personal gain. It's really about what is it going to mean for airmen, what is it going to mean for the overall mission, and if we feel like our family's in a place to continue to do that. Not that that's without challenge. With 3 teenagers in the house, soon to be a 20-year-old, that everybody wants to get a vote too. So there's hard decisions there that we're making with our other 2 teenagers as well.
Absolutely. Any advice for, say, young families now who are just dealing with EFMP for the first time, or young airmen who are just coming in and they haven't faced some of these challenges? I think you meant several principles right now, but there's some resilience things. You've mentioned several, the importance of family, being on the same page, doing it together. Any advice would you give to young families or young airmen just coming in and maybe facing this for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first and most important thing is just don't try to go it alone, because that's a lonely road. And I'll tell you, it can be, that may be a road for one, because not everybody deals, like we talked about, not everybody deals with a diagnosis the same. And I think for some people, they're going to jump right in and they're going to go, okay, how do we get after this? Some people, it may take them a year before they really go, that they even acknowledge to themselves that there's a problem, and that and the spouses may not be on the same page with that happening. And I will tell you that ebbs and flows over the years too. So you're not alone. Reach out. There are groups on this base right now that will help connect you to other people that are dealing with these type of situations in their family lives. And then I just can't stress the importance of finding a way to get at least on the same page with your spouse and your family in some cases with dealing with this, because your family members, your extended family, won't necessarily be the most helpful at times. And I'm not throwing my family under the bus here, but I mean, there are different things that everybody has their own opinion about these type of issues. You're the only one living with it inside your household. So you've got to be willing to get support where you can get it. But ultimately you got to fall back on each other to help come up with a solution and how you're going to deal with the problem.
Okay. Every Practicing the Pillars, we like to find out what pillars do you practice on a daily, weekly, monthly schedule that helps you deal with challenges, obstacles, maybe frustrations, anxieties. We all have obstacles, but we don't all have the same obstacles. But what have you found helpful for you on the pillars?
That's always a tough question. I knew that this question would get asked today, and I really tried to put a little bit of thought to it. And I think the big conclusion I came to is, hey, I may not be the shining example in this category. I think every personality is different when it comes to resiliency, and that's why you'll hear me say it a lot. There is no one size fits all to what makes a person resilient, how they build their resiliency. I tell people a lot, and I don't think people necessarily understand this about me. I am absolutely not an extrovert. I mean, I think there's this misconception that to be a senior leader in any organization, that you have to be this really outgoing, extroverted type of person. I am not that. I'm more of an introvert that does a really good job of compensating and coming off as an extrovert sometimes. So for me, being able to build resiliency at the core is just having some downtime and being able to just kind of introspectively think about what's going on and have an understanding. I draw a lot of strength from my family. That's definitely like you said, my wife and I have been together and known each other since we were early teens, and so she has always been a strength in my life in helping me get through tough times. Now that my kids are older, I'm the dad that goes to every sports game I can go to. Probably the dad that says things he shouldn't in the stands at every sports game he goes to. Getting better at that though. But I really am passionate about my kids' lives, and I want the best for them. Although with teenagers, they don't always necessarily think that you're trying to do that, but it's true. It's always there. Spiritually for me, it's one of the pillars. I have a strong faith, but I think like many people in this country, my practicing of that faith has ebbed and flowed throughout my life. But that doesn't mean that it's not strong, that I don't draw strength from it. What I'm finding is I draw, we talk about like keeping yourself motivated and keeping yourself strong and pushing forward, I draw a lot of strength from other people now. I draw a lot of strength from, I don't want to, not to sound corny, but I draw strength from the airmen in this wing and seeing what they're capable of doing. And I mean that with sincerity. I don't think you do a job like this if your only concern is self-promotion or what the next job's going to be. I think you do it because you love it and you want to see people succeed and do well. So when that's happening, I get a lot of strength from that. And so as challenging as the times are right now, I'm seeing a lot of really good examples amongst our airmen of people stepping up and doing the best they can. And that really keeps me going. It keeps me pushing through, tough situations, because it seems like every single day there's something. Just when I think we got a handle on everything right now, I'll get hit with some bizarre, crazy news, and then we have to kind of start back over again. So, but I see our airmen rising to the occasion, and I get my strength from that primarily. But yeah, as far as the other pillars go, I think I'm a human being, and I think I do good in things sometimes. I do not so good in others. I tried to get the physical pillar going again yesterday.
Cool.
Don't do push-ups and sit-ups with a 16-year-old.
Oh, right.
I think I did too many.
Well,
it's good though.
Yeah, well, they're going to push it. They're always going to push it. Hey, Dad, guess how many I can do? And yeah, no, but sir, and that's just a reminder that we all we have to customize some of these pillars for our own selves. We're different personalities and different backgrounds, and some of us will lean into one pillar more than another. But I think the thing that we all share in common as wingmen is we want to do the job well. We want to care for each other well. We want to do the mission, and we want to stay healthy. And that's what these pillars are. They're to help us to be healthy, to deliver to Team Whiteman, our best when we're out there working, to give our best. And then when we relax, when we go home, we can, catch our breath and get back at it again the next day.
Last thing I'd say about the pillars, and I think the concept is sound, and everything we've talked about, the variances all aside, never let what, your perceived failures in those pillars, don't let that become a drag on your resiliency. If physical fitness is something that you feel like you're not doing enough of, don't let that drag you down. Mm-hmm. At some point you can just hit the button and go, okay, haven't done very well over there, need to do better. We're going to start over now. And that can be in any of those four pillars. So that's something that I've had to do myself, is every now and then you kind of got to hit the reboot button on some things and go, okay, maybe I haven't done as good as I should have in the past over here, but I'm going to do better now, and then move forward. Don't look back, and move forward, because it's really about you, and it's about you building yourself into a stronger individual. And if you're dwelling on the past in one of those areas, you're doing the opposite of what we should be doing, which is trying to make ourselves stronger. All right.
I think that's perfect way to end. Thank you, sir. Thanks so much for sharing your story, your experience with us. And thanks for joining us on Practicing the Pillars today. And remember, there's some things you're going to have to put in the rearview mirror, but we look ahead and we just get stronger and better and learn from each other. Lean on each other. Lean on the pillars. Hey, thanks for all you do, Team Whiteman. This is another episode of Practicing the Pillars.